What's up, Cerebral NFL fans? Happy Wednesday, December 29th, 2021 morning to you. This is Steve Hyder, and I greatly appreciate you guys tuning in for your daily allotment of Cerebral NFL coverage. Let's get into it, guys. Let's get into that cerebral brain food, if you will. Today's topic, I want to talk about Philadelphia Eagles wide receiver Quez Watkins. In particular, what I really want to dive down into today, guys, is a really simple topic, but I think it's being understated how well Quez is performing. Quez is simply winning versus man coverage. And I'm sorry, there's only one thing that matters when you're trying to evaluate the potential ceiling of a player at the wide receiver position. Can you beat man coverage? The answer with Quez Watkins this season so far, it's been a resounding yes, he can. It's going understated, guys. I don't know why there's not parades in the city of Philadelphia for this guy on a weekly basis, because he's been that good for us. This is a 6th-round pick. If this was a 1st-round pick, we would love this type of production we're getting this season from this young man. He's developing right before our very eyes, and I think it's going unnoticed. It's going untalked about in the city of Philadelphia for the most part. Just really amongst us and the kind of the fan base, there's a lot of buzz, there's a lot of hype. I don't think his production is being taken serious enough. And I know when you look at man coverage, there's all kinds of, intricacies to kind of like what's going on with man coverage, and like, who you're playing in the man system matters, who you're lining up against. What your like who the cornerback is, what position depth that you're playing against, whether it's the second corner or the third corner. Quez is coming out of the slot. Like, I'm taking that into consideration, guys. That's what I'm getting around to, is that, sure, Quez is in the slot, and the slot sometimes can be a team's 3rd best corner. True, but you beat the competition that's in front of you, and Quez is winning against the competition that is in front of him. Simply put, guys, he's got 20 graded snaps on PFF versus man coverage. He's got a 77 grade versus man coverage. Let me put that in the context of who he's outperforming, by the way. Here's a list of guys that right now have a lower grade against man coverage compared to Quez Watkins. Michael Pittman Jr. out in Indianapolis. Not saying Michael Pittman Jr. hasn't done a great job and doesn't deserve his own respect. He's graded lower than Quez Watkins right now in man coverage. Kadarius Toney with the Giants. He's graded lower. Donovan Peoples-Jones with Cleveland. He's graded lower. Amon-Ra St. Brown, Detroit Lions. He's graded lower. Elijah Moore, New York Jets. He's graded lower than Quez Watkins. KJ Hamler, graded lower than Quez Watkins. Darnell Mooney of the Chicago Bears, graded lower than Quez Watkins. Chase Claypool, Pittsburgh, graded lower versus man coverage than Quez Watkins. Brandon Ayuk, San Francisco 49ers, graded lower than Quez Watkins in man coverage. Josh Palmer, Los Angeles Chargers, graded lower. De'Ami Brown, Washington football team, graded lower than Quez Watkins versus man coverage. Jerry Jeudy, Denver Broncos, graded lower versus man coverage. Terrence Marshall Jr., Carolina Panthers, graded lower than Quez Watkins versus man coverage. Laviska Shenault, Jacksonville Jaguars, graded lower than Quez Watkins. Rondell Moore, Arizona Cardinals, graded lower than Quez Watkins versus man coverage. Of course, Denzel Mims, New York Jets, graded lower. And then, I hate to say it, guys, but we got to add in the 2 Eagles. Jalen Reagor, graded lower. Devonta Smith, graded lower than Quez Watkins versus man coverage. I want to add a caveat here. Van Jefferson as well for the Los Angeles Rams. This is like, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. This is 19 different players I named. If you notice the theme of who I'm naming here, these are guys that were drafted in the past 2 draft classes, which was all said to be very, very highly rated draft classes coming in, right? 2020 and 2021's draft classes at the wide receiver position. People missed on Quez Watkins. That's the honest to God truth. They missed on him. And this young man is balling out. 77 grade. And I know that doesn't mean he's better than some of these guys. I'm not claiming he's a better route runner than Jerry Jeudy, right? I mean, that's crazy. He's not a better route runner than Devonta Smith. He's probably nowhere near as good a player yet as a Michael Pittman Jr. There's nuance to this conversation. But what I'm saying is, you judge a guy at the wide receiver position by if he can gain separation versus man coverage. And Quez Watkins really should be shouted out more for what he's doing. And this is my attempt here to do that for this young man, is to let people know this kid deserves so much more attention than he's receiving right now. Let me lay it out. The only receivers in this draft class we're talking about, 2020 and 2021, who this season are performing higher than him. Justin Jefferson at Minnesota, Gabriel Davis in Buffalo, and those are 2 top 10 guys in terms of the whole National Football League first man coverage. Henry Ruggs III, out of football now, can kind of almost scratch that one out. Brian Edwards, another guy that I think teams missed in the draft. I mean, Brian Edwards, it's a shame he suffered an injury because I believe he was coming out of South Carolina and he had pretty severe leg injury. I was pretty big on Brian Edwards as a guy I would have liked to seen the Eagles take a chance on as an split end boundary side receiver back in 2020. But a lot of teams were turned off with the injury with him. CeeDee Lamb, Dallas. Jalen Waddle, Miami. Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, and Dez Fitzpatrick. I will say Dez Fitzpatrick's a little complicated because he's only got a couple of routes really logged in there. He's not up close to 20 routes like some of these other guys are. Some of these guys are far above 20 graded targets, I should say. When I say routes, it's really targets that they're grading. So this kid deserves so much more credit than what he's been given. And it's sad that we have to go to PFF to get people to realize how well this young man's playing. Because I'm not a huge fan of PFF. But it's an unbiased look at what's going on here, right? These are not Eagle fans grading the young man. He's graded 33rd amongst all wide receivers, versus man coverage. It's a 6th-round pick balling out there. He's graded higher than Devonta Smith. And like I said, complexity, guys. Devonta Smith is far better at separating. Devonta Smith is taking shots at teams' best, corners, and they're also, even in zone coverage, guys, they're mixing their coverages on them and they're bracketing them. With that said, Quez has turned out to be quite a good pick by Howie Roseman in the scouting department. One of their finest hours, next, Jordan Mailata probably being their finest hour. But Quez Watkins was a heck of a pick by this front office and this organization. And just to lay it out how these guys graded overall, I'll lay out everybody on the team for you guys. Quez Watkins graded out as a 77, so I'm going to do receivers first. Devonta Smith, 72.4. He was ranked like 53rd, so we have 2 guys kind of hovering in the top 50 versus man coverage. J.J. Arcega-Whiteside, we're only talking about 1 target, guys, was the 3rd rated receiver at 63.3. But to be fair, Greg Ward Jr. only has 2 targets versus man coverage, and he had a 54.9. And then Jalen Reagor rounds out at 53.4. Laid out Quez Watkins, 20 targets versus man coverage. Devonta Smith, 21 targets versus man coverage. Jalen Reagor, 19 targets versus man coverage. So they're all pretty similar on how many targets they've received versus that type of coverage. Quez is at the top. Devonta is just behind him, obviously playing teams' better corners. And where are you at, Jalen Reagor? I was high on Jalen Reagor. You guys know I was a Reagor guy. I wanted Reagor in Philadelphia because I thought he fit Doug Peterson's scheme. I wouldn't have taken him over Justin Jefferson. I made 2 videos trying to rally people around the idea that Justin Jefferson's a really good football player. Jalen Reagor's got to start beating man coverage, guys. I mean, that could be the kind of the subsection of what we're talking about today. Jalen Reagor at 53.4 with 19 targets it's not acceptable. His release off the line of scrimmage is downright frustrating. It needs to be improved, or you're going to have to move him back, and he's going to have to earn his way back into snaps again, because you're going to have to go get a veteran, another guy that can separate with Quez and Devonta. And then, I'm sorry, but Jalen's going to have to fight his way back. You're not going to cut him because he's a 1st-round pick, but he's going to have to fight his way back on to the field. It's just not enough right now, guys. I'm going to be honest, and I'm a Reagor guy. It's not good enough. I didn't stop there, though, guys. I gave you everybody. So I added in everybody. Dallas Goedert is our highest rated receiver overall between tight ends, running backs, and wide receivers. He has an 82.3 grading versus man coverage. That's on 19 targets. The 2nd highest graded guy on our team is actually Kenneth Gainwell at 81.5. That's on 5 targets versus man coverage. Then Quez at 77 versus 20 targets. From there, you have Boston Scott, 2 targets, 75.2. From Boston Scott, you go to Devonta Smith, 72.4, 21 targets. From Boston Scott, you go to Miles Sanders on 6 targets, 64.7. Miles Sanders, it's a shame what happened to Miles, because Miles is actually having quietly a good year. It's kind of, it's complicated. It stinks that what happened occurred, but it did happen. So it stinks, but it is what it is, right? I mean, we know that the injuries are always been a concern with him. The next guy up will be JJ, 63.3 on 1 target. but he's the next highest graded receiver on this team. From there, we have Jack Stahl on 2 targets, 55 grading. Greg Ward Jr. would follow him, 54.9 on 2 targets. And then not last, but probably least because of the amount of targets, Jalen Reagor, 53.4 on 19 targets. And then last, but probably not least because it's not fair, Jordan Howard's not a receiving back, but Jordan Howard's our lowest graded guy versus man coverage. 53.2, but that's not against any targets. I guess they're just grading routes he's run on air, basically. So when you look at it, you got Dallas Goedert is our best separator versus man coverage. Then Kenneth Gainwell. From those two, you go to Quez Watkins. From Quez Watkins to Boston Scott. From Boston Scott to Devonta Smith. Talking about the gradings, guys. And then you can kind of lay it out how you want to past that point. But those are your top 5 separators. Here's the thing. It doesn't shock me that a guy like Dallas Goedert is our highest rated guy versus man coverage. And I still think Dallas Goedert has leaps and bounds to go versus man coverage, if I'm being quite honest, guys, because he's beating linebackers. He's beating some safeties. You get what I'm saying? Like, it's not quite as impressive. But with that said, he's top 20. He's ranked 20th in the entire football. And when you filter by everybody, he's the 20th highest graded guy versus man coverage in terms of his grade. That 82.3 ranks 20th. Give the guys due. I mean, he's got to, if he starts beating corners, we got something really, really good in Dallas Goedert. He's got to stop dropping the football. And that's my next point. Hang on. Past that, Kenneth Gainwell is just a really good route runner. We knew this about Kenneth Gainwell coming in from college. This guy was exceptional at running routes. Still holds true. Still holds true with Kenneth Gainwell. He's an incredible route runner. Past Kenneth Gainwell, then you get into Quez, and you get into like the Devonta Smiths and Boston Scotts. Devonta Smith, he's taking on teams' best corners. I think he's had a really productive season. He's definitely going to probably get really close to that 900-yard receiving mark. He's had a great, rookie year, and Quez Watkins is developing, guys. We should really be proud to an extent of what we got here from the young offensive perspective here. Let me get into drops real quick before I start getting into comments, guys, and I'll get into your comments, all right? Let me make my points. Drops, Dallas Goedert, 5 drops on the season. He leads the team in drops. I will say this, man. Dallas Goedert's got to clean up these drops, because if this was Jalen Reagor out there dropping the ball the way he's been dropping it the last few weeks, and Jalen has dropped a couple here and there, Jalen Reagor, we'd be chopping him up. Dallas has got to fix it up, man, because he's been getting off because he makes big plays. You know what I'm saying? Kenneth Gainwell is next in line with 4 drops. Then Jalen Reagor with 3, Devonta Smith with 3. Then Jordan Howard, Greg Ward, Boston Scott, Miles Sanders, Quez Watkins all have 1 drop, and that's it. So you add it up, it's 9. Goes to 12, goes to 15, 16, 18, 19, 20 drops on the season. 20 drops on the season is what they have recorded. The highest drop rate, it's unfair, is Jordan Howard. He's only got 3 targets, 1 drop. It's a 33% drop rate. It's misleading, guys. It's a little misleading. You know what I mean? The next highest drop rate you're going to have here is going to be Greg Ward with his 1 drop, 20%. He's only got 7 targets on the season, so that's kind of skewing it a little bit. Past that, we got a 12.1 marker from Kenneth Gainwell on 39 targets. Kenneth Gainwell needs to clean up the drops. That is a problem with it. When you got 39 targets and you got 12% drop rate, that's hot. That's not good. Past that, guys, you have Boston Scott, 11 targets, 10% drop rate. It is what it is with Boston. You know what I mean? And then you got Dallas Goedert, 9.1% drop rate on 65 targets. Jalen Reagor, 8.8% drop rate on 51 targets. And then you got the really good here. I want to shout out some of the good here. Devonta Smith is under a 5% drop rate, 4.9%. It's got 91 targets, guys. That's respectable. It's really good. Then you look at, Miles Sanders, 32 targets, 3.7% drop rate. That's pretty good. And then Quez Watkins, just to round out the point I'm making about Quez Watkins today, guys, 2.7% drop rate on 50 targets, Quez Watkins. He's the highest graded wide receiver we have versus man coverage. And he's got the lowest drop rate amongst all these guys. What's not to love, man? What's not to love about Quez Watkins right now? This young man has developed and deserves a lot of respect here. All right, guys, let me get into some questions. Let me get into the comments. I appreciate everybody tuning in this Wednesday morning. I appreciate you guys. What's up, NFC East Beast? How you doing, buddy? He said, timing is everything in successful media, coach. Well, I'm trying to time it earlier, guys. What's up, Allie? How you doing? Allie will be with me tonight. We're going to be talking about the quarterback position and a lot of things, guys. Low round picks get no respect. You're right. You're right. Because there's a few names I mentioned on here that deserve a lot more respect than they're receiving, to be quite honest. Like, if you look at some of the names that are on this list that have really performed, like Darnell Mooney. Darnell Mooney was a 5th-round pick. Darnell Mooney's a good football player as well. NFC East Beast, do you think he can be our field receiver? Yeah, like our boundary side. I mean, why mess up a good thing if he's performing the way he's performing in the slot? But I do think he has a skill set to be a field side. Yeah, I think he can be your flanker. Absolutely. What's up, Romy? One more. I appreciate you tuning in, buddy. And you got NFC East Beast saying Jalen Reagor graded lower than Quez versus man coverage is not even close, man. Like, it's night and day. It's night and day when you look at man coverage. Jalen Reagor's got a lot he's got to work on personally. I like Jalen. I think there's talent with Jalen Reagor. I don't think you give up on this guy. He needs to be pushed. He needs to earn his way back onto the field. I'm not giving this guy, like, you're going into your third season. You need to earn it now. Like, we're removed a little bit from that first round pick. You have talent. It's there. We see it in stretches. You got to earn it, man. I like the kid. I think he's better than what we think, but it's hard to overlook a 53 grading versus man coverage, man. It's horrible. You got to be better than that. Quez is our Z, super fast, shifty, stays low, and tracks the ball well. I think he could easily be our Z. He could actually be the flanker, but it's kind of like one of those arguments, though, Allie. Do you mess up a good thing because he's playing so well from the slot? Should we risk it? Sam, the artist, formerly known as S4L. What's good, buddy? So the question is, what does Watkins do with the ball when it's thrown, doing how he's catching rate look? Also, I really think we need to get someone with a bigger body. Quez goes up and gets the football, though, Sam. I don't know how much bigger you really want the receiver. You know, Quez is almost 6'2". You know, he's not a 225-pound guy. He's super fast, and he's pretty good at elevating up and grabbing the football. Now, if you're talking about, you know, Yak, I don't know. We have to look into Yak and kind of see where his standing is on Yak. I'm not familiar in terms of like where he's at with his Yak standing, and I can look that up real quick. But, you know, it kind of is what it is. Sam said, also, I'm beginning to get thoroughly disappointed by Dallas Goedert and all the drops, especially when he's wide open. He's got to be better, man. It's got to be better. You're right, Sam. Dallas Goedert has a ton of talent. Dallas Goedert is producing for us this year, but the drops are super frustrating. And like I said, if that was Jalen Reagor dropping those balls in those spots, we'd be eating that kid up. We'd eat him up. So I agree with you. Dallas Goedert is getting by on reputation more so than his production. But I think that we're tempered. I think we're tempered in our anger a little bit towards Dallas Goedert because Dallas Goedert did have 2 back-to-back 100-yard receiving games. So, I mean, you know what I mean? If you can produce at that level, a lot of dudes drop passes. You know, a lot of the good guys, Justin Jefferson and those dudes, they're up top, man. They lead in drops. So, you know what I mean? Looking at the USC kid, you'll make Bergang 31 real happy, man. He's really high on that kid from USC, the receiver. What's up, Brian? How you doing, buddy? I appreciate you tuning in with us today, man. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. I'm going to just take a second while I have some time to kind of plug some things because I'm horrible at plugging things. But there are some things that are very useful, and I want to plug for you. One of them is NORDVPN. Listen, they have not sponsored this video. That's not what this is. But they're partnered with me as an affiliate. And one thing I really love about NordVPN, guys, is that, yes, you can do the password protections. You can do all those things with NordVPN, no doubt about it. But I'm here to give you a tip, guys. I'm here to tell you how to get games for a really low price. All right? If you pay for NordVPN and you get that VPN network, right? And then you go and you get NFL Game Pass through NFL.com and you get it in Europe. So the /EN version of it. If you get it through Europe, I normally go through Great Britain myself. I go through England. What you can do there, guys, is you can actually not only get access to the coaches film and have the better interface. The American interface for coaches film is horrible. The British one is a lot better. Not only do you get that better interface, what they don't tell you is that in Europe, they allow them to watch the games live. Problem solved if you can't get access to cable. You get what I'm saying here, guys? I'm trying to give you a major tip about NordVPN. That's linked down below, guys. I'm telling you, it's worth it, guys. I would go check out NordVPN, especially if you're one of those people like me to where you need to find a way of getting NFL coverage. Go to NordVPN, guys. I'm telling you, it's a super cool tool to have. All right, Brian said, super hard to forget the players we could have picked over Nelson Reagor Jr. I think it's unfair to Nelson Aguilar, to be quite honest, because I think Nelson Aguilar, number one, Nelson could separate versus man coverage. Nelson Aguilar was a heck of a route runner, if I'm being honest. It was never his issue was never separating. Now, What I will say is that like the way that allowing the media and things to get into your head to manipulate you and mess with you. I think you got a point. That I think that very much is affecting Jalen Reagor, and he's got to find a way to get past that. He needs to find a way of getting past that, or else it's gonna stink, man. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's not good. It's definitely not good. What's up, Genetic Freak 84? I saw your comment the other last night, man. I'm sorry, I passed out, bro. I'll get to it though, man. Genetic Freak 84 said, if Hurts struggles against Washington football team in Dallas, resulting in a loss, do you think the Eagles should draft or trade for a quarterback? I think they're going to explore the market no matter if we win or lose. Now, exploring the market doesn't mean that you're gonna make a decision. You get what I'm saying, Genetic Freak? It just means they're going to shake the trees. I don't think the big three are coming here. I'm just going to be honest. I don't have any insight. I'm not an NFL insider, so it's not like I'm connected to front offices and GM. So it's not like I have any knowledge that any other person doesn't have. I don't think the big three are coming here. I don't see Aaron Rodgers wanting to come to Philadelphia. I don't think that, I don't think Russell Wilson wants to come here either, to be quite honest. I mean, maybe he changes his mind depending on what the market looks like for him and, how the Eagles finish. He might look at this and say, that's kind of a hot team that's kind of streaking, and maybe. But I just doubt that. Deshaun Watson has so much to clear from a legal hurdle standpoint. I can't see it. If you look at it like, here's how I look at Jalen Hurts. Can you upgrade over Jalen Hurts? Yes, you can. From a pocket standpoint, you can absolutely upgrade over. Is he good enough to hold the position down and to give you time to develop him because of what he can do outside of just, throwing from the pocket? I think so. I think it's reasonable to say that this young man can hold the position, and maybe it behooves the Eagles to spend those picks to improve the roster around the quarterback position instead of vice versa, in my opinion, because the improvements, what are your improvements? Kirk Cousins from the pocket, yeah, he's better than Hurts. There's no doubt about it. Is Kirk Cousins really going to be the game-breaking quarterback? You know what I mean? Like, I don't see it. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe Kirk Cousins could come in here and he'll hoist the Lombardi. I don't know, but I don't feel that way about Kirk Cousins. I think he's a good quarterback, and I think if you put a good enough team around him, he would be good, but I would just stick with Jalen options or Kirk Cousins. If I had nobody, Genetic Freak, if I had absolutely nobody at the quarterback position, then maybe I would go in that direction. But I have somebody. I have two somebodies. I'd rather just stick with, instead of getting a Kirk Cousins type, I'd rather just stick with Jalen Hurts and Gardner Minshew. And if it's really that bad, I just open the competition up in 2022 between Gardner Minshew and Jalen Hurts, and I'll let the best quarterback win. That guy takes the position. That's how I would approach it personally. Now, this. I think Derek Carr is widely underrated. Derek Carr interests me as a quarterback prospect, not a prospect. He's been in the league too long to be called a prospect. As a quarterback, right? Derek Carr reminds me a little bit of the other guy that used to be here, that CW dude, in that he had a phenomenal season to where an injury probably derailed him from being an MVP, where he was having an MVP-like season. He got derailed by an injury, and he hasn't really been the same since that point. If Derek Carr became available, if Vegas is that crazy, if they really are that crazy to make him available because they don't understand what they have in him, that one might interest me more, right? But I still think the better play here is just to let Jalen Hurts kind of have this team. Especially if he wins and puts us in the playoffs, I think it's his team. If he falls down the stretch, and I think you open it up to a quarterback competition between Minshew and him. Maybe you draft a guy, where you don't need to reach and move around, just bring a guy in just to see if there's anything there. But I wouldn't, you know what I'm saying? Like, I wouldn't do it. I wouldn't sacrifice building the rest of the roster for a quarterback, in my opinion. Zesty Steak Sauce said, is it just me, or did Hurts improve as a pocket passer? To some extent, he has, Zesty. There's still things he needs to work on, right? He still needs to understand alerts better. He needs to understand how to manipulate and beat certain coverages. But there are certain subtle things in the pocket, Zesty, he's gotten better at. He's better at sliding now. You see, like, it's a little back and forth, right? Because we asked him to play on schedule, right? That was the whole argument. This dude needs to play on time and on schedule with the offense. He needs to stop, moving the pocket and leaving the pocket so soon, right? Well, that's going to result in some things. There's a trade-off, right? That's when you hang in the pocket maybe a little too long because you're trying too hard to do that, right? So you get strip sacked like he's got the last couple of games. There's also some things to where, you have the Dallas Goedert incident where he's, we're going to get into that tonight. Like, Allie and I are really going to get into that whole red zone rep that happened down there. And we're going to talk about what happened. But there's the whole incident where you're in cover 7 or you're facing cover 7, right? And there's two techniques you can run on the weak side of a cover 7 coverage, guys. Basically, here's what it is. You can run what's called Meg, which is a man concept, okay? So you man up on your guy, especially your X receiver. Or you can run what's called a cone, which is where you have inside, outside leverage. You're bracketing the coverage, right? Because we were in the red zone, of course, Jalen Hurts rightfully thought, like, okay, they're probably going to be playing Meg, man coverage. We're in the red zone. They're probably not going to zone down here. Well, post-snap, that's not what happened, right? Now, you can say that maybe that should be an alert that you should be paying attention to, and you should see, but he's playing on schedule. That's the problem. Like, we asked him to play on schedule. He's executing the offense the way it's coached. He's playing on schedule, and he misses that read because he's playing on schedule. He's doing what he's asked to do. So it's complex. You see what I'm saying, Zesty? Like, it's never as simple as the answers as people want to try to make it out to be, in my opinion. Yes, I see some improvements from Jalen Hurts. I don't know where the front office is on it. You know what I mean? What's up, Genetic Freak? No problem, buddy. No problem at all, man. All right, Natiro, what's good, buddy? He said, Gate, I don't watch Raiders. Does Carr fit Sirianni's ideal quarterback model of quick reads and releases? Debatable. In my opinion, he's not necessarily – I think he couldn't do it. He can do it. But I don't know that I would say that Derek Carr – I think Derek Carr is a little bit of a guy who likes to air it out a little bit more than that, to be quite honest. I think he's very similar to a CW in terms of the athletic profile and what he can do with his arm. I don't know that his arm is quite to CW's arm, but he's pretty good. He's that style of quarterback. I honestly don't think he's going to end up here, guys. I highly doubt Derek Carr ends up in Philadelphia. I mean, I'm just naming that name in terms of like guys that would interest me. Like I don't think the big three are coming here. I'm not interested in Kirk Cousins. I want no part of Jimmy Garoppolo. I'll take Jalen Hurts 100 times out of 100 times over Jimmy Garoppolo. I don't even think that's a question in my mind. And then the last guy that is Derek Carr, which Derek Carr, sure, it interests me, but I don't think it's going to happen, guys. To be quite honest. What's up, Brian? He said, do you think they should use those 3 picks in the first to get immediate needs outside of the quarterback this year and not safety next year? So I think they should. Here's the thing. If you spend 3 picks, you're probably looking at about $10 million, right? I will say that the figures they're giving you at SpoTrack are a little off because they're grading like a 12 pick. And you know what I mean? Like those picks are way higher than what the reality of the picks are going to be. Those picks are, I think the last time I looked were like, what was it, like 19, 20, and 23? And those may differ by this weekend. If the Colts drop a game, they can drop the draft positioning. So things can happen that can shift where our draft picks are going to be. But looking at it from 19th, 20th, and then 23rd, the thing is number one, are you really going to get an impact player there? You can make the argument, yeah, Justin Jefferson was picked in that area. He was available. You know what I mean? He got picked 22nd. So you can definitely get an impact player there. Gate, I hear you. But I think you stand a far better chance of getting an impact player if you can get to the top 12. So my opinion is if you get a team that wants out of the top 12 because whoever they were targeting, whatever their position of need is no longer in the draft, it's no longer there, and they want to get back, I would try to trade out. Whether that's a first and a second round pick, whether it's 2 first round picks, I would try to trade. I'm not back. I'm going to try to trade forward and get an impact player if I could. Now, I think the question is like who's still going to be on your board? Where are you projecting guys to fall? We can absolutely use an impact corner. And even at the 19th pick, there's a chance an impact corner might be still on the board. I don't know if that's going to be where Gardner goes. He might go a little bit before that. So it's a little iffy. The Eagles might not try to get to the top 12. They might just be looking to leapfrog a couple of spots to go get a Gardner. So we'll see. Like, I don't even know how things are going to fall yet, guys. You know what I mean? Like, nothing is quite done yet with the draft in terms of that. So we don't know where the final picks are going to lie. I will say 3 first-round picks is incredibly expensive to make. My guess is they're either going to maneuver up and get one guy or they're going to push back into the 2023 draft. The complication with the 23 draft is this. Most NFL organizations think that the 2023 draft is a lot better than the 2022 draft. So you might have a hard time getting guys that want to move up into this draft. Your best, case scenario here is that one of the quarterbacks, like say a Willis. I think Willis would be the one that maybe might be targeted in that range, or Corral. Like say one of those guys gets valued in that area, and you got a team that's really desperate to get up and get a quarterback. You might be able to trade back. You know what I mean? You might be able to trade one of those picks back into the early second round, or maybe possibly even get some future value in terms of 2023. Think of like what the Ravens did with Lamar Jackson, how they traded back up into the late first. We're not talking about that. I mean, our picks are a little higher than that, but that point being said, how guys will trade back up into the first to snatch a quarterback. That you might get lucky there. You might. I wouldn't bank on it though. What's up, Zesty Steak Sauce? It's no problem, man. No problem. Taekwon, what's good, man? How you doing, man? All right, Sam, the artist formerly known as S4L, said, I'm so happy you said you would not take Jimmy Garoppolo. I'm 100% certain he is going to Pittsburgh. I want no part of Jimmy Garoppolo. No part of him. Like I said, guys, I will absolutely take 100 out of 100 times I'll take Jalen Hurts over Jimmy Garoppolo. I want no parts of Jimmy Garoppolo. I don't think he's good enough. What's up, Alex? How you doing, buddy? I appreciate you tuning in, man. He said, if they can get Linderbaum and move Dickerson to center for when Kelsey retires so Kelsey can mentor. But why would you move Dickerson there when you have Linderbaum? I would just put Linderbaum at center. I would put Linderbaum at center. I would keep Dickerson at left guard, and I would have Mulata on the left side and have probably the most dominant left side in football for the next decade, potentially. Linderbaum is a projection, but I think he's going to be pretty good. And then you got, your future maybe in Dickerson at right guard if he can stay healthy. That's a problem. Or not Dickerson. I'm sorry, guys, at right guard. Driscoll. Both of their names starting with a D messes me up here. Driscoll at right guard, if he can stay healthy, would be, Then you got Lane Johnson for a short period of time. I don't know if they start cross-training Andre Dillard more to play left and right or what they do there, but at some point I think you got to figure something out with Dillard as well because Dillard's not just going to be a swing tackle. That'd be a really expensive, you're not going to keep him on the 5th year on that. I doubt it. That'd be a really expensive amount to pay for a swing tackle. What's up, Allison? So Ali said, what do you mean by impact? Can you give an example? An impact player, I mean someone that can basically change the fortunes of your one side of the football just by their pick. I hate to say it, guys. Don't kill me. But I have to say it. Michael Parsons is an impact player. Michael Parsons was an impact pick for Dallas. You get what I'm saying? You need someone who can change the favor of what you do. Defensively, I think that's either a marquee defensive lineman, which you probably got to get a lot higher than the top 12. You probably need to be in the top 6 picks to get one of those guys. Slides, I doubt it. Maybe. And then I would say linebacker and safety are the other 2 areas, especially with Gannon's scheme, if Gannon remains here in Philadelphia. Those are the positions I would say you get the most bang for your buck in terms of impact, alley. We know who the players are there at those positions. There's only 2 other guys outside of those defensive linemen that qualify for that designation. I don't know that a corner is an impact player. That would be just like I'm talking about getting an Ahmad Garner if you're 19th pick, jump up to like the 16th pick. So I don't know that I'd say Ahmad Garner is an impact player, especially because corners I think are a little harder to adjust to the league. I think it's a little more difficult for them to adjust to the league than other positions. So you get what I'm saying, guys, with that. Hopefully you get what I'm saying with that. What's up, Alex? He said between Kelsey and Stout. Hey, man, Stoutland, he's crazy, man. What's up, Easy Gang? Said, good morning, Gate. First time being able to catch you live. Love what you're doing. Go Birds. Easy Gang, thank you so much, man. I appreciate you catching us live, man, and being here. We're going to do this every Monday through Thursday at 9:05. Guys, if you got a little time off of whether it's school or whether it's work, I'm going to start loading this up in podcast form as well. Some of you I know you can't really make it here live, and you're probably catching the playback on this. I'm going to start loading this up as a podcast. It'll be a little bit later, obviously, than what I release here and I do it live, but at least you'll be able to listen to it if you can't watch video format stuff at work, because it's how mine used to be too, where I could listen to things, but I couldn't watch them. I'd get in trouble for that part. What's up, Alex? Hey, man, guys, I'm trying to be here. Like I said, Monday through Thursday, I'm trying to be live, guys. I'm trying to make sure I can incorporate and build community here and get your guys' perspective and talk back and forth. What's up, Big Fish, Little Boat? I like the handle. He said, we can get the best running back in the draft and 2 defensive linemen or secondary help. I think we get a free agent wide receiver and edge rusher. That's an interesting perspective, Big Little Fish, on edge rusher in terms of being free agent, just because of the cost. An impact guy, a guy that you can depend upon is going to cost you some money at the edge. Free agency wide receiver, I think I'm there with you on that one. I think they're going to look for not the top tier guys, not the Devontae Adams. I don't think that's happening. I think it's entirely too expensive. But I think that next tier of guys just below that area, You know what I mean? The Allen Robinsons, if that becomes available, things like that. Even I think Mike Williams, I would probably put below that tier. You know, he's not quite Allen Robinson, but I think they're going to go get a guy that's respectable, a guy that they know can beat man coverage, a guy that can separate, and you know they'll probably go get a veteran guy because I think it's necessary. I think you have to at the wide receiver position. Like I said, I was a Rager guy, but even as a Rager guy, I tried to warn. I coach wide receivers. I coach quarterbacks. Those are two position groups I coached the longest. Cornerback being the next thing. And to be honest with you, when I looked over Justin Jefferson's film, it was phenomenal. That young man knew how to create space. And I tried to warn people. I made 2 videos. He's the only draft prospect to this day I've ever made 2 draft videos about because I was trying to warn people how good he was. Because, you know, it's kind of crazy to me, big fish, little boat, because sometimes, you know, in the Eagles community, sometimes like people like, you know, there was a large segment of the fan base that did not want Justin Jefferson. You know what I mean? And now that he's balling, then they act like they were on board with it. Truth be told, it took a lot of convincing because that's what we thought the pick was going to be. And then it came down that it was going to be Rager. Chance Brooks will be back next year. NFC East Beast. That's a great question. I don't think it's going to happen, man. You can never say never. You never close the door completely. But if you just look at the contract and when he's going to get paid, I mean, unless they restructure and push money again, but he hasn't been on the field. It feels like it's the right time to separate. You know what I mean? NFC East Beast. It just feels like this is the time you separate from him, right? Like big contract. He hasn't been on the field. I think it's time you move on from him. And I like Brandon Brooks. I think Brandon Brooks is one of my favorite Eagles players in the 2010s decade. And alongside of like guys like Malcolm Jenkins and a few other guys, like I thought, you know, he was a really good impact player for the Eagles for a long time. But the injuries are mounting up. So Ali says, so is an impact position versus an impact player? It depends. It depends on your organization. I can tell you the Eagles are not just going to go purely player. You know, if you got Devontae, the only time I think they might take a chance, Allison, is if you're looking at skill position. If you're looking at a skill position player, or you're looking at an offensive lineman, then they might do something different, right? Because I believe this organization has a philosophy that you can never have too many offensive linemen. So if they think there's a guy on the offense or defensive line that is truly an impact player, and they feel like they can go get him, then yes, I think that fits your narrative of can it just be player. But I think they're looking for the bang for their buckets at position groups that they have the needs for, and finding a guy that can make an impact. Because, you know, you have to consider the scheme, because the scheme makes a difference on how guys will be utilized and how productive they'll be. Natiro said, Gate, which quarterback in the league do you think would fit Sirianni's scheme the best? They like veteran quarterbacks for the most part. You know, Sirianni and Frank and those guys that they've mostly worked with veteran guys. You know, the Phillip Rivers. You know, Andrew Luck. Then they had Jacoby Brissett. Then they had Phillip Rivers, and then Carson Wentz is there now. I think that they prefer to work with veteran guys. I mean, Jacoby Brissett was a young quarterback, but mostly that's what they're looking for. I think Sirianni's is slightly different from Frank. I think the origins of his system is built underneath Frank Reich, but I also think he's got some Mike McCoy influences and things like that. I think that they're not opposed to having a guy that is more of a vertical passer. I don't think you have to be like a fast processing, quick on time. I don't think it has to be it. I just think he wants you to make the right read. Now, I will say they want a guy that is, you know, the reason they look for vets is once you've been a veteran, you've been in the league so much, like, you know every coverage, you know what I'm saying? Like, you're not going to get fooled that often by coverage. Now, you can do some things to manipulate you and make you think you're seeing one thing when you're not. But, you know, generally speaking, you're not getting manipulated by coverage as a veteran quarterback. That's why they prefer them, because you remember Nick's scheme puts a lot of emphasis on the quarterback because the receivers will get the autonomy to basically audible their routes. They're going to get some flexibility. They're going to have some built-in stuff there. So the quarterback and the receiver need to be on the same page, and he needs to be able to predict based upon the coverage what's going on. So I think that's, you know, kind of some of the nuance to it. But, you know, it is what it is, man. Like, it's hard to get these veteran guys. They cost a ton of money. What other safeties do you like besides Kyle Hamilton? Kyle Hamilton to me is like the clear-cut Big Birds. He's like the clear-cut guy. Let me take a look and see who's declared for the draft, because I don't know exactly everyone who's declared for the draft. So let me see what the safety class looks like in 2022. But yeah, Kyle Hamilton to me is the only guy that you're hearing referred to and you're talking about. So yeah, you have the kid from Penn State, Brisker. Hang on, let me take a look. Give me 1 second, guys. It's taking a minute for it to scroll and load everything. So I think the big thing here is that they probably need a true free at this point. So they have there's Brisker from Penn State. They have Hill from Michigan, Cantalone from Arkansas, McKinley III from Oregon, Jordan Battle from Alabama, Joseph from Northwestern, Tyke Smith from Georgia. The person who really catches my attention here is Jalen Cantalone, the kid from Arkansas, young man from Arkansas. But I have to really go through like 3 or 4 games of each guy and really grade out what they do well and where they need improvements, Big Bird. But he's the kid that I've seen play a little bit that I know there's some potential there. Miguel, what's up, buddy? He said, thank you for all the info, bro. I like what you were doing. Keep doing your thing. I appreciate you, man. Thank you guys for the support. LAFK, what's up, buddy? He said, why didn't they want Jefferson? The kid's a natural. Yeah. The explanation I heard is this, LAFK. I heard the explanation that there was a little bit of disagreement between the scouting department and the coaching staff on this one. This wasn't like analytics and scouting. It was more the coaching staff and scouting. Scouting department wanted Justin Jefferson. One of the members of Doug Peterson's coaching staff was bullish on Jalen Reagor. He had a personal relationship with Monty Reagor, and obviously the front office has a personal relationship with Monty Reagor, former Eagles player. So, and I'll admit, like Jalen Reagor's film, you could see there was potential, but you're dealing with a Big 12 receiver that hadn't played a lot because of nagging injury, stuff like that. Hadn't played a lot of man coverage, and he had some things he had to learn in route running. But they saw the potential and thought the ceiling would be higher. They picked the wrong guy. They absolutely picked the wrong guy. That Aaron's the guy who basically said he wanted Jalen Reagor. He was the one who was advocating for him. He had a personal relationship with Monty Reagor. Remember that before Aaron Moorhead got here, before he coached at Vanderbilt, he was at Texas A&M. So he had been coaching in Texas for a while. Miguel said, dude, I want Greg Ward back in. It looks like he's getting some increase in snaps, so that might be what's going on. Big Fish Little Bill said, I want Godwin and think he might be cheaper due to injury. Possibly, but I mean, hopefully he's going to be good, man. Hopefully he's going to be good with that knee. Anytime you tear up your knee like that, it's always a concern for a wide receiver. Makes me a little concerned for him, and I hope Godwin's the same guy because, man, he was a really good player for some years. Ali said, people thought JJ was just a slot, so they undervalued him. Funny. Kyle Hamilton, book it. I hope they get Kyle Hamilton. That would be a pretty big haul for the Eagles. I don't know if we're going to be in position of getting them. They're going to go O-line and D-line with those first 2 picks, and I'm fine with that as long as they get the right guys. Maybe. I think it depends on where they're picking, Alex. It depends on where they're picking, and it depends on who's available, right? I think that you're on to something, which is if all else fails with the Philadelphia Eagles, just predict O-line and D-line because that's where they like to spend their draft capital. I think they recognize the need at defensive line in particular. NFC East B said, what do you think the Eagles will do with Dillard, Sanders, and Barnett in the offseason? Tough questions, man. Dillard will probably remain on his contract. Sanders, I don't know if they're going to extend him or not, man. I don't want to predict that. NFC East Beast, it's hard to say. They might say that it depends on how Sanders and his agent value him. Like, he's been injured. He's productive as crap. I went over his numbers yesterday, guys. I mean, 137 attempts, which is far fewer than anyone else. He's got 20 10-plus yard runs on the season, which ranks 10th overall in the league. And those guys have far more rushing attempts than he does. On 15 plus breakaway runs, runs of 15 yards or greater, he's got 11 on the season, which ranks sixth. Far fewer attempts than other people. But you also got to factor in just how good our offensive line is playing. Right? NFC East beast. I mean, our offensive line is really good. And I don't know how you value that when you have a really dominant offensive line that makes life easy for running backs, right? I mean, Jordan Howard also, 75 attempts on the season. He's got 9 runs of 10-plus yards, which ranks 43rd. He's got 5 runs of 15-plus yards, which ranks 30th. He's a top 45 back on 75 attempts. Hard to say, man. Hard. It's really difficult to say. Do you think there are any sleepers at running back in this draft? There's always somebody, LAFK, but I haven't quite got deep enough in the analysis of draft prospects to elevate somebody to that role yet. I will say that I feel like we might have missed the mark if we were looking for contact bounce backs, because I thought there was a ton of them in the 21 draft. I think we kind of missed our calling a little bit on having that kind of guy that you can give the ball to 20 times a game, right? I do think that you're onto something, LAFK, which is if Nick Sirianni and this coaching staff think that they can identify a guy that's a Jonathan Taylor, or, I don't know, Dollar Tree version of Jonathan Taylor even, cheap version of him, they're going to go for that guy. I agree with you. I think that's kind of what they want. We'll see, though. It's hard to say. The Gambling Hippie, what's good, buddy? He said, with it being a bad quarterback draft, do you think there is a possibility how he works something up to move up to get one of the top 2 defensive ends? Not sure that's a good move, but I could see how he's doing it. Boy, that's a lot of wheeling and dealing, the Gambling Hippie. He made some moves that has the CW in his name, and I'm not, I really want to talk about him. I'm trying to move on from that dude from Philly, but it's possible. You don't know with Howie, man. Howie really maneuvered the draft well last year. Howie's bad at certain things. There's no doubt about it, but manipulating trades, he's really good at that. So how bad do those guys want to get back in the draft? You know what I mean? Like, how bad they want to get back in the draft? I think that's really the question. Miguel said, would you rather have Gbor or Rager? Are you saying Greg Ward? I think that they should be – Rager should still start over Greg Ward, but Greg Ward should be cutting into Rager snaps. Does that make sense, Miguel? The reason is Greg Ward is, he's your prototypical slot. You got Quez pretty much in the slots. I would start moving Quez a little bit out to that flanker position. I'd be splitting some reps there between him and Rager. Quez should be the second highest snap total guy in terms of your receivers. I think Rager and Greg Ward should be pretty close to how many snaps they're getting at this point. I still think Rager does some things in terms of how you can set a defense up through his motion and movement that you can use him for, but I do think that he should have some reduction in the snaps at this point. I don't think it's been good enough. Although the last 2 weeks he's been better. To be fair to him, he's been better. I would like to see Rager end. We got 2 games left. I would love to see Rager end these 2 games with more than 50 yards receiving in both games. To me, that's building momentum. And I don't think that's too much to ask for. I'm not asking for 100-yard games. I'm asking for you to register at least 3 to 4 games on the season of 50 yards or more. Because if you can't do that, I think we got a problem, man. The Gambling Hippie said, Rager is so close to what Watkins is. I'd have to go with Greg Ward. He can be a solid slot. Ali said, so Harris and McLeod are both strong safety box safeties. In their early days, they were both frees. I think Harris still can kind of be a free, but I think if you're going to bring one of those 2 back, Ali, I think those are your strongs. I think in Gannon's system, Gannon doesn't differentiate between free and strong. It's one designation that needs to be to be brought in. He will rock both safeties. You kind of have to have the versatility to play in the box and as a roving safety as well. You got to be able to do both. But at this point in their careers, you know what I mean? Especially McLeod coming, maybe McLeod's a lot better a year removed from the knee injury. Maybe that's what's going on here, but McLeod doesn't look like the same guy. And he actually looked pretty good in the last game. Competition matters, and that competition was horrible. It's one of the worst quarterback jobs I've watched. And, I watched Clayton Thurston one year in preseason. That guy Thurston was horrible. This guy was pretty close to being that level of bad. What's up, NFC East Beast? He said the Minshew reporting on his head coach meeting, in my honest opinion, is way overblown. It's what I would expect from a man wanting to better their self. You mean Hurts, NFC East Beast? Ali said, what do you think of Epps? Man, he's better than I thought, Ali. I got to give Epps credit because I was kind of like, man, how many years going to give this dude? He's kind of coming to his own this season. He's athletic. He's the most athletic guy out on the field from the safety position. He'll hit. I mean, the guy comes up and just absolutely destroys guys across the middle of the field. If he starts to develop a ball hawk nature to him and starts taking passes away, he could be your free. I'm going to be honest with you, Ali. Let him be your free. And I know Gannon doesn't really designate between free and strong. They're both kind of expected to rock, play in the box, play D. I get it. But he could be that prototypical, what you would call a free safety. And then you just get another impact guy to go with him, or he's dang sure good enough to be your third. Marcus Epps is plenty good enough to be a third safety in the league. He proved me wrong, man. He's one of the few guys on the roster that he proved me wrong. He's a good football player. What's up, Kurt? How you doing, buddy? Big Bird said, I want to run it back in this draft, man. With size and upside. Somebody could have a very special season behind this Philly line. You're not kidding, man. You could definitely produce a 1,000-yard runner behind this line. There's no doubt about that. I'm 100% with you. Big Bird said, I would go crazy if they found a way to get Hamilton. Yeah, me too, because that's an impact player in my opinion. He would be a really good football player. I don't know that, it's hard to predict where a guy like Hamilton's going to go because he's a safety, but I do kind of suspect that he might be a guy that goes higher than what people think. You know what I mean? Like, I do get that kind of vibe from him. James said, throw the bank, get Devontae Adams. I don't think we got enough bank to throw around to get him, to be honest, James. I mean, they'll do some things to free up some cap space. That's always what I try to warn people. When we were 90 million over the cap last year, I made 3 or 4 videos breaking down exactly what I thought Howie was going to do to get under the cap. He did a lot of what I said. He didn't do everything word for word. There was a couple of times where he did some different things with the contracts than I would have done, but I don't know why he made some of those decisions. But he pretty much, we were pretty close in what we were projecting he was going to do. So I don't know that we're going to have enough bank for Devontae Adams, but I do expect that we're going to get a guy that's a veteran wide receiver that can separate and can win in coverage. He can be covered. I definitely think that's going to be coming in this offseason. LAFK said, do you think Jalen will get an extra year? Jalen Hurts? I think it's trending that way, LAFK. I think the coaching staff really likes Jalen Hurts. Look, it doesn't matter like what I think or anyone else thinks. Like, the coaching staff seems to be really in on the kid. Now, I guess the question is, will there be a difference in opinion between the front office, scouts, analytics people, and the coaching staff? That kind of side of things, I don't have access to, LAFK. I would love to get a member of the Philadelphia Eagles on this channel to talk. I have tried so many times to get different people on here. I mean, it's really hard to get someone from the front office to talk. It's really difficult to get them on. Michael Williams said, yes, we need a good defensive end and a running back. I agree. LAFK said, bigger need, linebacker or free safety? Ooh. They're both vitally important, LAFK. I think that a safety is probably a little bigger of a need, but that we need a Sam. We definitely need a Sam linebacker. I think Davion Taylor, if you can keep him on the field and keep him healthy, he can be your Will, right? He can be a poor man's, Davion Taylor could be a poor man's Darius Leonard. TJ Edwards, you could probably upgrade there. I don't think it's a necessity to upgrade there, but yeah, I mean, you could get better play at middle linebacker than TJ Edwards, but he's perfectly respectable. I like what TJ Edwards has done. He kind of was one of the big players to turn around the nature of the defense. Also competition, the level of competition helped us too. But, those guys were getting blown off the ball. They were just standing still until he got in there. And then I think what you really need more than anything, I think you need a Sam linebacker in terms of the linebackers. I think we need that Alex Barr type. I'm not talking about a guy that can be as good as Alex Barr, but, so Jamie Collins was that type of linebacker. Alex Barr, you need that. They're kind of like these hybrid defensive ends that have crazy wingspans and are just physical, can set the edge. have good movement to be able to get out there and guard the flats. We need that type, man. We need that impact guy out there at Sam, in my opinion. And that doesn't mean I don't think Avery hasn't had moments this year to where Avery maybe produced higher than people thought. But I still think that they're going to want an upgrade, over Avery, to be quite honest. Hey, Son, what's good, buddy? He said, just curious, Steve, why can't you say Carson Wentz, laugh out loud? I get you moved on from him, but like it or not, without him, we don't win the Super Bowl that season. I'm not a Carson Wentz hater, say Son. I just don't feel like arguing about Carson Wentz. I'm tired of the conversation. You get what I'm saying? Chris Perez said, yo, Steve, what's up, man? How you doing, Chris? Long time no see, buddy. What is of the coaching staff so far this season? Man, I've been a Nick Sirianni guy from the beginning. I actually called his hire right before he was hired, ironically. When I made the video and I said, Brian Dable was kind of like, that's who I wanted, but I knew he wasn't going to come to Philly. And then I said that Mike Smith, the guy who went to Atlanta, I said that he was pretty high on my list. I talked about, what was his name? Gabriel, the offensive coordinator out there in Baltimore. I talked about how he would be a really good fit with Jalen Hurts. But I also said, evaluating all these guys and who I know they're going to interview, I've listened to Nick Sirianni talk. I've gone back and I've watched a little bit of that Indianapolis film. I want Nick Sirianni. I think Nick Sirianni is really good. I like what Nick Sirianni has done here. I got all this credit. Like, how did you know that, Gabe? You work for Howie in secret. No, I don't. But it just felt like that guy was going to win an interview to me. He just felt like if you watch this stuff from Indianapolis and you watch like him talk, he felt like a guy that was going to win an interview. Jonathan Gannon's been up and down. I think some of us are a little too hard on Jonathan Gannon. I do think that you got to give a guy an opportunity to have his guys in a system before you judge him as just being complete and utter failure. He's capitalized upon bad competition, right? We have not faced any daunting task, in terms of the offense as from our defense. I mean, you got to weigh against that. I really need to see him stack up against, a Dak Prescott and a Cowboys offense, or an Aaron Rodgers, or, even what's going on there in Kyler Murray in Arizona, like an adequate offense that can beat you and can hurt you. I need to see him play against that type of offense and see how, what does he do here? And then you got to give him time to incorporate his guys. But look, I mean, the rest of the league's telling you what they think about him. This young man's already on a short list for head coach job interviews. I don't think he's going to get a head coaching gig yet, but clearly the league sees talent in that young man. So the running back out of Alabama is high on your list, Eddie Holmes. No, Minshew. It's also what I would expect head coach to tell Shu. Lori said, build around Hurts to see what we have in the second-round pick. I didn't hear anything about Minshew meeting with – I don't know what you're referring to, NFC East Beast. I don't know anything about Minshew meeting with Nick Sirianni. I knew about Jalen Hurts having the Friday meetings with Nick Sirianni. Then he also has the meetings with Jeff Stafford to talk about the running game. So you'd have to tell me which one that is. I didn't catch it, man. The gambling hippie said, how bad do you think the quarterback controversy gets if we starts last week? Oh, if Minshew starts last week of the season because things go our way and Minshew somehow goes up and beats or almost beats the Cowboys starters with backups. Well, I mean, why would the Cowboys be playing start? You know what I mean? Like, you'd have to define like the nature of the scenario of what the scenario is that the Cowboys are going to be playing their starters while we're resting ours. You know what I mean? Like gambling hippie. But the Cowboys defense they have a really good pass rush, but they'll turn you over. They got a good pass rush, but they're suspect to a good run team. They don't have the D line to really hold up to that. They will create turnovers. You got to be careful with the football. Chris said a lot of free agent receivers next year. OBJ might not be too expensive. And I don't know if OBJ is the greatest fit here, Chris, but he's a good football player. I'm not taking away from his football intelligence, what he can do on the field. He's really good. How do you feel about Hurts' accuracy? He needs improvement, man. I don't think it's a huge footwork issue with him. I mean, he's not overstriding, and I don't see pigeon-toeing. I don't see that kind of thing from him. I do think his base still gets off of him sometimes. He'll let his base get away from him. I think the accuracy issue has more to do with timing with Hurts. He's got to anticipate and time the routes better to the receivers and sync his footwork up a little better. The only way he's going to do that is with more reps and more time. And I know that's frustrating for some guys that are not sold in on him, but it's just the truth of how the position works, guys. I'm not saying it to say like, oh, this guy's this or this guy's that. I'm just telling you, someone who's coached quarterbacks for a really long time, it takes time to build that. You know what I mean? Michael said Godwin's going to be a free agent too. Yeah, depending on where that knee is. He blew out the knee, so we'll have to see where he's at. Chris said Darius Leonard is a good comp for Taylor athletically. Exactly. Athletically, exactly. But instinct-wise, I think Taylor's still progressing there. LAFK said, your thoughts on Tate Gowan? Typical average size corner for today's NFL, 6 foot 6'1", somewhere in that area. He's a guy that can probably play on the boundary. He can match up against bigger receivers. He's physical enough. This young man does not have a ton of experience playing high-level competition football. And that's your concern, right? Because he transferred in, and even when he transferred into UCF. And UCF, it's not playing the SEC. You know what I mean? It's not even playing the ACC. So you got to be a little weary there. And then he opted out of the 2020 season on top of that. So he really only has 1 year of what you would call like adequate level competition to judge him on. So I don't know where the young man is in terms of the development. I'd have to see him kind of in camp and see what he's doing, see technique, see how he plays the technique and get a feel for that. And Miguel said, oh, man, I've been loving Fletcher, man. And it's Fletcher's December month right now. He's killing it right now. He seems to play better in December. What do you think about Fletcher Cox? I think he's kind of taken on the burden of the leadership role from the defense. I don't know if I should say burden. That's probably a long way of saying it, but you get what I mean. Like he's kind of taking on that role. I think that the defense still drastically misses guys like, Brandon Graham, but Fletch has been better. He's been playing better, and I think a lot of that has to do with the scheme adjustments and the fact that these linebackers are coming up, flowing into gaps, and getting these linemen off of the interior defensive linemen, making it a little bit harder for them to double team them. I think that's a pretty big part of it. James said, how do you feel about Devin Lloyd, the Utah linebacker? I like him a lot. I actually like the kid that was drafted this past year from Utah as well. The real big one that was really athletic. I like Devin Lloyd. I think he'd be a pretty good pick for the Eagles, to be quite honest. I don't know if they're going to value linebacker that high, but I'm not opposed to that type of pick. Same, I like Sirianni a lot too. I hear you, Chris. Yeah, he's been pretty good, man. Sirianni reminds me of Reich in some ways. A little bit more animated than Reich, you know what I mean? A little bit more fiery. You remember early on, Chris, when people kept trying to say, like, oh, like, he's not going to be able to command a locker room and like, he's going to let the players do whatever they want to do. And I'm like, oh, you guys have not learned much about this young man because that's not true. I call him young man. He's actually older than me. But Nick's kind of a fiery guy. I knew that was a nonsense, kind of take that people were giving. Sam said, what do you think the Jaguars and Raiders go after as coaches? I think Doug Peterson might be the head coach of the Jaguars. I think there's a really good chance that happens. The Raiders, that's a tough one, man. The Raiders, maybe they can lure a guy like a Brian Dable out of Buffalo, especially since Buffalo's not doing that great. Right, this year that they had a little bit of a down year compared to what the expectations were. I could see them maybe luring someone away like that. You know what I mean? Like I could see that. Mad Hatter said, Hurts is 23, Wentz is 29, Pickett is 25. Who has the better upside? I think you got to define what you mean by upside. Pickett is more of a play on time, play on schedule, get the ball out of your hands fast type quarterback, quick processor. He's exciting in college. He's got some pocket mobility, but I still think he lacks it, to be quite honest. I think when teams brought pressure on him, especially in 2020, he got dropped a little bit, man. He didn't have that functional athleticism I'd like to see from him. I've been told that I'm supposed to refer to Kenny Pickett as Tiny Hands Pickett. That's the big knock on him, is that his hand size isn't that big. But to be quite honest, there's guys like Tom Brady who can actually grip much better thrower of the football. Tom Brady got clocked in 2019 at a 61 mile per hour ball velocity, that's really high, guys. I mean, that's in Josh Allen territory. That's the only type of guys throwing that much, right? Kirk Cousins is another guy, smaller hand quarterback. Got clocked easy in about 59. He's actually got a little bit more ball velocity than even CW, Carson Wentz does. So, some guys with smaller hands, they can still grip and rip the football. It's not the defining thing, but they do worry about climate. Like when you get into these weather games, can a guy grip the ball? That's really their concern. And you'll see subtle things where that can mess you up. Like go back to that screen pass I think it was the Washington game to Rager, to where a lot of people are like, man, like it was just flat. Like, yeah, because the ball was a little wet. It was misting out on the field. It had been going on the whole game. And it's hard to kind of get a grip, get the threads turned, and get the ball out there. It can mess up your timing. So, I mean, it's things like that, guys. And Jalen Hurts is not a small, he's typical size hands for a quarterback. Generally speaking, they're looking for 10 chances to benchmark guys. I don't know why they get into such weird analytical measurements when it comes to football player, because we almost treat them like they're cattle, but they do. We always crap the bed against the Cowboys. Not December, though. Not December. We've been pretty good in December against them. But they have a much better football team. I agree. Pretty Dime, the wordsmith. What's up? Said maybe he was talking about the reports that Minshew went into Sirianni's office and said he wanted to be QB1 and asked what he has to do to get there. Oh, I didn't hear that. That's interesting. That's really interesting. I'll have to look that up. I appreciate that, Pretty Dime. I didn't know that. Do you think we'll end up paying Sanders or let him walk? If we let him walk, what route will we go? Develop Gainwell or draft trade at running back? Sam Fleming, appreciate the comment, buddy. That's a great question. To begin with, I really don't know. I think it depends on what the agent and Sanders are looking for in terms of the contract value. I think if it's outside of the top 10 contracts, he's got a shot at sticking in Philly. If it's in the top 10, they're probably going to part ways. Probably. Bottom line being, I don't work in the front office, Sam, so I can't say definitively, but I think it's definitely a possibility. Gallup's a free agent. I like Michael Gallup. Michael Gallup can separate. He's fast. He can separate. A little bit like Quez, but Michael Gallup's a good receiver. I think they need a new defensive tackle to replace Cox one day. Yeah, Miguel, eventually you're going to have to. And Fletch's contract's pretty high too, but I think I can't remember who it was. One of the larger podcasts out here kind of covered it and said that their understanding is that Fletch knew and was amendable to being traded, but also knew if they couldn't find a trading partner, it's probably not happening. He's probably going to be an Eagle to begin 2022. Maybe they revisit it, during camp, maybe during the trade deadline, but it probably wouldn't happen unless there's a crazy offer for him just because of the dead money. So I still think they're in that same kind of situation with Fletch. I think he'll still be here for 2022. Saison said, since Stingley and Hamilton will be gone by the time we pick, which cornerback and safety combination you think next up after those two? The corner, it can get debatable by the system. Saison, it has a lot to do with it. I really like the kid Gardner from Cincinnati. He's more of a man press type cornerback, to be quite honest. He's got a little bit to learn in eye discipline and zone. So I'm not too sure if he's the greatest fit in Philly, but I think we can make it work. I like him a lot. In terms of safeties, that's another one where it's a little tough to kind of project and grade guys to say like where, this person or that person should be. I mean, some people are going to really like Jordan Battle. I kind of like the kid from Arkansas. Brisker is technically, I think, the next highest rated guy, the safety out of Penn State. But to be honest, things are going to change a lot between now and April. Where guys are ranked currently and where their standings are from a position group standing, it's probably going to change a lot after you get to the, pro days, scouting combine, stuff, all that kind of stuff kind of comes into play. Assuming we even have a scouting combine, I still think that's in jeopardy. LAFK said, why is Jason Huntley buried on the practice squad? I think when you have four backs already healthy, there's not really a place to put them, but there's a chance he gets called up. Jamison Crowder's a really good slot receiver. He's like kind of I don't know that he's what they're exactly looking for, Mad Hatter, but he's like an upgraded version of Greg Ward Jr., right? He's a very good route runner. Dude's got some shake to him, man. He may not be a crazy top-end speed guy, but he gets separation. Natiro said, Gate, Daniel, I'm not even trying to say that name. Natiro, you're not getting me on camera over here stuttering and looking crazy. The 6'9" Polynesian offensive tackle like Malata. He's also new to football. He's a rugby background. I hope we take him in the draft. He's a nice project for Statland to have. I don't know what his value is. You know more about him than I do, honestly, Natiro. Yeah, they both relate to players well, Chris. I agree. Yeah, Kenny Pickett's been around for a while, guys. Kenny Pickett has been around so long. When I interviewed Max Brown's a former collegiate quarterback, guys. He played at USC and transferred to Pitt. His senior year, when Max Brown transferred to Pitt, was Kenny Pickett's freshman season. So he got, he had some insight about Kenny Pickett. Yeah, Kenny Pickett's older. NFC East B said, I've been watching the Jags. There's something there to build on. Dougie P should probably take a hard look if asked to interview. Yeah, he is. He's interviewing. He's actually interviewing there. Kenny Pickett is 23 years old. His birthday is 6/6/98. Yeah, he's a youngin'. Chris Perez says Brady's arm is underrated. 100% agree, Chris. It is. And Brady's like such a golden boy story of a guy that did not have a great arm. There's a reason he didn't do the ball velocity drill at the combine. You know what I mean? He knew it wasn't going to be good. So he worked on his arm over time. And because he's been in the NFL since 2000, basically, like you're talking 20 some years of fine tuning and perfecting your craft, and small incremental improvements over 20 years, over 20-year period is a great deal from year 1 to year 20. And it shows on him. Natiro said Joe Burrow's hand size. Exactly. What's up, Jeremiah Butler? How you doing, buddy? So does Kyler. Kyler Murray has smaller hands. That was his biggest knock in his height. Height is overrated. Flutie was only 5'9". Somewhat overrated, Chris. I agree that it's somewhat overrated, but there's a prototypical size that they like to see out of quarterbacks. And I wouldn't agree with you, Chris, because I'm not a really tall guy and I had to play the quarterback position myself. And if I had the right height, I feel like I probably could have gotten a D1 scholarship, but I didn't have the height. What do you think of Andre Dillard? Haven't seen him play that much this season. Early in the year he was okay, then he kind of got exposed a little bit. I think there are teams that will have interest in Andre Dillard. I think he's better than a lot of other left tackles playing in the league right now, to be quite honest. Does he have deficiencies? Absolutely. Does he still need areas of his game that need to grow? 100%. I still think he's better than a lot of guys taking snaps on Sunday. We go defense in the draft. We're going to I like the energy, Edwin. I like the energy, man. First round, we draft defense. We're going to the Super Bowl. He clarified. He's like, wait a minute, because they could misconstrue that and probably be picking in the 5th, 6th, and 7th round. And go, I said it. I did exactly what you asked me to do. What do you mean? Need more weapons on offense. I'd rather get Mathai than draft. You talking about the Honey Badger? I was thinking the same thing. A rich man's Greg Ward. Yeah, exactly. Sandeep, how you doing, buddy? He said, what's good? Merry late Christmas. Happy New Year's. Appreciate you, buddy. Same to you, man. Is Max still doing YouTube? I believe so, Chris. You got to remember, Max is a color. He's a TV color analyst for the Pac-12 network. So he was covering games. So I think it's kind of hard for him to do his YouTube channel and cover games at the same time. So I think that's what's been going on. Steve, when you start looking at players in the draft, check out North Dakota State wide receiver Christian Watson, 6'5", 208 pounds and fast. He'd be a nice developmental wide receiver for the Eagles. Got you, bro. Let me write it down real quick. You said Christian Watson, North Dakota State. Man, North Dakota State in the past 10, 15 years, they've come a long way, haven't they? Appreciate you, the Dirty Kenzo. He says, salute, Gate, and salute to the morning lives, too. Thank you, buddy. I appreciate you, man. Said love the honey badger. Yeah, me too. He's a good player, man. Impact player. You're looking for impact players. It's an impact player. Gabe, what is needed to have a strong arm? Well, what is needed to have a strong arm, or how do you improve it? Hurts is a power lifter and still has a noodle arm. I disagree, Natira. I don't think Hurts has a noodle arm. I think he's got about an average NFL arm. I would I would guess without having the numbers right in front of me that his ball velocity is somewhere between 54 to 55 miles per hour, just judging the film. Hurts's issue is not arm strength, it's timing. His timing's off. His base can be off. His strong base can be off. When his strong base and his timing is off, it causes the ball to float on him a little bit. He's also a bit of a high release at times. He has a high release at times. So, I mean, there's a wind up to his delivery. The base can be off at times. Like, it's things like that that kind of affect his throwing motion. I honestly don't think Hurts has a noodle arm at all. Like, there's differences with that. Like, he's 54, 55 mile per hour range. In terms of how you improve the arm strength, I'm not really a physical trainer, but you go through things that strengthen, things that same way a pitcher strengthens his arm. You do some things that strengthen your shoulder. You do some things that strengthen the tricep area, things like that help you. Then you have to go through correcting imperfections in your throwing motion, and it's over time, man. You do it over time. It takes a long, long time, and there are guys who, specifically they specialize in doing that. I more so work with people's base and trying to get them into the correct base more than I did like arm strength stuff. But I mean, I've watched guys do it. Yeah, so here goes Mad Hatter. He put it in. Yes, he said Hurts's ball velocity was clocked at 54 miles per hour. Lamar was clocked at 44. Yeah, Lamar, exactly. Lamar's got a smaller arm. You timed out somebody by accident, Chris. You got timed out. It was on an accident, guys. Oh, Jeremiah said I was wondering, laugh out loud. Jason Glover said, what are your thoughts on Tay Gowan and Zach McPherson going into next year? Are we picking a cornerback in the first round? It's a great question, Jason. I think Tay Gowan, you're not going to forsake getting a cornerback because you have Tay Gowan. The thing with, and I said this a little bit earlier in the live, Jason, is that he comes from a much smaller school background. He transferred into UCF and he only played one season at UCF. And UCF isn't exactly playing the SEC or even in the ACC. You know what I mean? So even your level of competition there is a little questionable. But we've seen guys come out of the AAC and those conferences and have success. With that said, he only has 1 year at that level of competition, and then he opted out in the 2020 season. So I think that it's a little unknown of where his development is, Jason. I really don't know where he is from a developmental standpoint because there's not a lot to grade. I do think that he's got the prototypical size you would want, right? I think he could be a boundary side corner for you. I think he can be physical with guys. I think he has that ability. Zach McPherson is very much kind of similar to Steven Nelson to me. Not necessarily, like he's more athletic than Steven Nelson, but I mean the style of corner. He's feisty. He fights back. He will try to steal a football from guys. He's got his eyes have to get better, man. He's got to trust his eyes and reading zone coverage better, to be quite honest. That's really where his progression needs to occur. I have no clue where they value guys, to be honest, Jason, in terms of like, what would they do? Rest in peace, John Madden. Yeah, man, that's sad, man. It's part of my childhood, Kenzo. I mean, we're the same age. So, I mean, part of my childhood there, man. It's crazy. Eagles has landed. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to click on your name and time you out. I'm on mobile. Can I reverse a timeout? I have no clue, man. I've never actually timed it out. What's up, Blue City Empire Sports? How you doing, buddy? So what's popping, Gate City? I did predict before the season started that the Giants and Eagles will split. Hey, man, you were solid on your prediction. We did split because, man, the Eagles really crapped the bed in that first game. Hurts' arm isn't that bad. I agree, Chris. It's more accuracy issues that stem from anticipating routes and syncing your footwork up for the receiver's routes. It's more the issue with the accuracy stuff. I thought you could. I tried to show the message, but Steve read it anyway. I see a lot of heel clicking from Hurts. I'd have to look and see. I mean, on the deep ball, I can kind of see your point, Chris. I'm not concerned with Hurts' strength as with his accuracy, timing, and exactly. I agree with that point. Chris, Hurts rarely throws from a solid base. Exactly, Ali. He's got some work to do from his base, and he's been putting in work. You know, I don't want to make it sound like this guy's not out there really putting in work. He is, but his base has to get better. I agree. From the pocket, it's inconsistent. Yep, I agree, guys. You're on to it. Eric said, "What's up, Eric R? How you doing, buddy?" He said, "Good morning, Coach. How are you? Glad to catch you on." Hey, man, I'm doing good, man. We're Monday through Thursday. We're doing these live streams every morning, starting at 9:05, guys. I'm trying to keep consistent with it. I've seen some promise with Jalen when he stayed in the pocket this last game. I agree. There's those little moments. Jalen has these moments to where it really stands out. Like the throw that he threw to Jalen Reagor on the sideline, where I'm not saying it was the greatest read, but it showed arm talent. That was a real arm talent. He put it through a window, guys. That's tough to do. I throw that pass, it's picked. He throws that pass because he's a far superior athlete. He gets it completed. You get what I mean? There was one in the 2020 season in Arizona that I've been talking about recently, to where he threw a far hash timing route as an out route, a timing route to Dallas Goedert, and that is the prototypical route that you judge arm strength on, and he absolutely threaded it to Dallas Goedert in that game. So there are these little splashes where you can see it. It's consistency. It's a consistency thing. What happens if we let Brooks walk? Can Herbig be the #1 right guard, or do we have to look for one in the draft, free agent, trade market? Sam, I think that they would probably go with Driscoll at right guard when he's healthy. The health thing is scaring me with Driscoll. Yeah, there's definitely talent there. He just needs to develop. I agree. I'm not a Jalen Hurts fan, and I'm not a Jalen Hurts hater. The only problem I had with him is he is not throwing and passing the ball a lot. You cannot win games by running ball. You need to run and pass. I don't know, man. I mean, other teams have definitely won with a solid run game and good defense. Facts. Grant might be done like Brooks. Achilles are career enders. It messes up your entire leg. I wish he had an ACL instead, which is easier to come back from. I hope Brandon Graham is not done. That is one of my absolute favorite Eagles of all time. Not just a decade. It's like one of my favorite Eagles of all time. Eagles has landed. It's in agreement with you, Blue City Empire Sports. Driscoll is good. All right, guys, we're at an hour and 23 minutes. I'm about to close out the live stream, guys. I appreciate y'all so much. Thank y'all so much for tuning in. I'll be back tomorrow. I'm actually going to be back tonight. So Allie and I are going to go live tonight. We're going to talk about Jalen Hurts a little bit more in depth. We're going to really break down a couple of plays and really hone in on some of the things that we see. So make sure you guys tune in for that, okay? It's going to be tonight, 7 o'clock, all right? I'll make sure I send out alerts for everybody, all right? Like at the Titans and the Colts. I'm going to read a couple more comments and then jump off, guys. With that being said, do you have any doubt that Jalen can become a consistent starting caliber quarterback going forward? Eric, I think he's trending in the right direction. Eric. Only problem for Hurts is he doesn't see the field yet. He's got to get better at seeing the field. I agree. BG is a leader. Yeah, he was special, man. He was special. I hope we get Allen Robinson to help Hurts and Smith. Me too, man. Hit that like button. I appreciate you guys. On the way out, if you could do me a huge favor, hit the like button. Thank you all so much, guys. I will see y'all on the next video tonight. We're going to go a little bit more in depth with Jalen, guys. So it's going to be me and Allie, so it won't just be my perspective. You're going to get two perspectives from people who study film. All right? Appreciate y'all. See you guys on the next live.